Hello everyone, this is Shiv Prem, a legal intern at Lexis and Company, and currently pursuing BLLB honors from Central University of South Bihar. So in this today's session, I will be dealing with the supervening impossibility. So this topic will be covered in two videos. In the first video, I will be going through the introduction part, then what is be the meaning of the supervening impossibility, and then further in the second video, I will be going through the contract when become void on the basis of supervening impossibility and the conditions related to it, and then after I will be dealing with the limits of the doctrine. So let us just start this video with the introduction part. So the doctrine of impossibility was impossibility of contract owes its origin to Roman law. Its application was seen in the Roman contract law, where the parties were discharged because the thing has been destroyed or the purpose of the contract has become unattainable. The origin of supervening impossibility of contract is closely related to the English rule. Subsequently, impossibility of performance cannot be a valid defense by the defendant in cases of breach of an obligation under the contract. This rule was laid down in Paradine versus Jane. Briefly, briefly explaining the facts, Jane was sued for the rent due to Paradine. The defendant argued that the German prince has invaded the area where the property was situated, that is, occupied the property. Therefore, he could not use the property to make any profits. He had planned to pay the rent out of profits which he would have made that had he used the property. The defense was not held valid as the obligation under the contract was absolute with no expectations whatsoever. Though the defendant's proposition was a reasonable and a strong one, so he could not have done anything about the situation. The judge held that the responsibility under the contract should be honored under all circumstances. The doctrine of supervening impossibility was involved as a response to the aforementioned doctrine. There was cases where the contract could not be performed through no fault of the defendant, and the rigidity of the English rule was found to be unreasonable, unfair. Hence, an exception to this rule was necessary. The doctrine of frustration was incorporated in the contract law as a remedy to the above situation. Let us see the meaning of this doctrine. A contract is an agreement or a set of obligations to be fulfilled by the parties to the contract. Sometimes, subsequent to the construction of a contract, and unforeseen circumstances may arise which renders the performance of the contract impossible. The object of the contract ceases to exist. This change in circumstance is not caused by the parties and it changes the nature of the obligation, different from what was complicated by the parties. As with most laws in India, the Contract Act is influenced by English law or doctrine. The act was passed. The act was passed when India was under colonial rule. The doctrine constitutes the Indian Contract Act 1872 as Section 56, that is, the Agreement to Do Impossible Act. It speaks about two impossibilities, that is, the initial possibility and the subsequent impossibility. The initial possibility undergoes the fundamental proposition that an agreement to do something that is instinctively impossible is void. For example, an agreement to bring a person back to his life who is dead, being impossible to perform, is void. Subsequent impossibility, as the term suggests, something that happens later, that is, after the parties have got into a contract. Sometimes it happens that at the time when the contract was constructed, the performance of the contract was not an issue, but subsequently, because of the change in the circumstances of the factors, the performance become impossible or unlawful. An example here would be where a contract is made for the import of goods and the import is thereafter forbidden by the government order. Let us see some application of the doctrine under different scenarios. In Taylor versus Cadwell, the court pointed out the rule stated in Paradigm versus GM is only applicable when the contract is positive and absolute and not dependent on any contingency, either explicit or implicit. Facts were as follows: like the defendant agreed to let the plaintiffs operate on their premises for a concert. Subsequently, before the scheduled concert, the premises was destroyed by the fire without any fault or either party. If it was held that the contract was not absolute because its understanding that the parties shall be explored in a case preliminary to breach accomplishment becomes impossible from the extra meaning of the thing without fault of the contractor. The discussion brought to the fore the constant struggle between the two conflicting doctrines. The principle of inviolability of contract, which supports the principle of permanency of contract, and the principle that contract is discharged when the common object or assumption has been annihilated by the certain happenings or incidents. Furthermore, Carroll versus Henry, that is a related correlation case, highlights that the ever principle is not restricted to the physical impossibilities. It also extends to the cases where the performance of the contract is achievable tangibly, but the purpose for which the parties had constructed the agreement has failed to materialize. To better illustrate this point, we should discuss the facts of Creel versus Henry, which are like the defendant agreed to rent a flat from the plaintiff for 2 days, on which days it had been announced that the crowing would take place, and therefore a parade would pass along that place. Some portion of the rent was paid before the event. Later, the parade was dropped because the king was ill. The defendant objected to paying the remaining amount. The court concluded that the real intention of the parties, which was given effect by the contract, was to have a view of the parade. This was the cornerstone of the contract, with the variation process not taking place on the given day. The object of the contract was frustrated. As a result, the plaintiff was not qualified to recover the balance of the rent. It is a perfect example of the court not restricting itself to physical possibilities. So that's all for now. Let us meet in the next session where I will be going through the contract when it becomes void on the basis of supervening impossibility in some if the if the some conditions are satisfied, and then after I will be dealing with the limits of this doctrine. So that's all for now. Let us meet in the next session. Please do like and subscribe the channel. Thank you.